Right. I haven't made a video in a while about games, well, not since my Mass Effect 3 rant back 3 years ago, so I would like to start off by saying that until recently I used to be a very big fan of Square Enix, but I have to say that today they are really starting to get on my nerves with all the things that they keep doing to the Final Fantasy series especially, and I'm really not happy. Final Fantasy 13, when it first came out, I was very pissed off, to say the least, at the battle system, and I understand that they wanted to make it challenging for people because they were starting to think, well, it's too easy, la 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 la, you know, and fair enough, I understand that, but, you know, combined with the, oh, you could only control one member of your party, and if your party leader goes down, it's game over. Lack of exploration, you know, you only get one place to really explore, and that's virtually at the very end of the game on Chapter 11. And it's like, well, come on. You know, what were you expecting? People to be happy about the fact that you restricted them on near enough everything? I mean, the computer was constantly, especially in the early stages of the game, constantly targeting the party bloody leader. You know, the one boss at the very beginning of the game, I can't remember the name of it. It's just after they all get their l'Cie powers and whatnot, they go on the run, they go up against that mechanical bloody scorpion thing, you know, and Lightning's the party leader at that point, and I have never actually done that battle once without dying at least once. You know, without getting game over at least once in that battle, because every single time I play that battle, the boss just targets Lightning constantly. And so I spend the majority of it trying to keep a heal so I don't get bloody game over. You know, and the whole party leader goes down, game over aspect really bugged the hell out of me, because the computer in the early stages of the game especially had a real big tendency to target the party leader. You know, and the fact that I was restricted on leveling up my characters so that I could actually fight off the computer's attempts to targeting the party leader, but I was restricted on how much I can level up per chapter, just pissed me off even more. And then when it was a case of I could only explore the game when I got to Pulse on chapter 11, it was the first and only time you got to do any real exploration in the game, and that was so frustrating, because the number of times on the old Final Fantasy games where I would just, you know, wander off to a distant part of the blooming world and start exploring, you know, fighting new monsters, you know, looking for hidden treasures and blooming whatnot, just flying around in the Ragnarok on 8, the blooming Invincible on 9, you know, the airship on 10, Highwind on 7, you know, and there was none of that, you know, until you got to chapter bloody 11, and then it was just for that chapter pretty much. All the added extra bosses and whatnot with the Seath Stones, pretty much on that chapter and that chapter only. Then it was back to linear bloody world. Only follow this little bloody path to your next destination. And then you had to wait until you completed the game to be able to unlock their full leveling up system. But by that point, there was really no bloody point, because you'd already beaten the game. You couldn't redo the battles leading up to the final battle. So any of the farming potential for some of the items, if you didn't get it on that battle, you weren't going to get it. You know, so it's like you couldn't redo the battles leading up to the end, even though you still passed through that area. So I thought that was a bit of a piss take as well. All the restrictions on 13 just wound me up to no end. You know, and the ending of 13.3 has just pretty much sealed Final Fantasy's fate for me, because I'm really not happy about the whole kill God aspect. You know, I am a firm believer in blooming God, and I was really upset by that ending. You know, that really did, I felt very insulted. It's something that Hironobu Sakaguchi would never do in his games. I mean, his villains, yeah, some of them, like Kefka, have had god complexes, Sephiroth even, you know, but never would he go so far as to pull a stunt like that. You know, I was upset over that with Grandia 2 back in the blooming day as well. You know, so for that to be the ending of, you know, of 13.3 really pissed me off. You know, as much as I enjoyed, you know, the improvements that they'd made to the series up to that point, as soon as I got to the end, I was like, ah, no thank you. You know, and what they said about, you know, the release of Final Fantasy 14, you know, how it's going to be, you know, have real world aspects in it and everything. It's like, well, didn't you guys pay attention to the fan base kicking off over Spirits Within? The fact that it was set in the real bloody world. People were unhappy about it because it had very little in common with Final Fantasy. It's there in the title. Final Fantasy. Fantasy. How is it a fantasy if it's set in the fucking real world? You know, their attitude of late, you know, and they don't seem to be listening much to the fan base either. And that just really irritates me. You know, and Final Fantasy X's remake. Oh, don't get me started. The remake of Final Fantasy X, leading up to the release of Final Fantasy X, they were promising that they were going to fix the voice sync. You know, they were going to bring it more in sync with the motions on the blooming game and whatnot. But there are a couple of scenes on, you know, there's only actually a couple of scenes on the original release of 10 that are actually out of sync. And that is the scene in Luca when Tidus is trying to teach Yuna how to whistle. You know, the voice actor starts speaking like Tidus has already got his fingers in his mouth. He's going, put your fingers in your mouth like this. But it's not until he says like this that Tidus on the game actually puts his fingers in his mouth. So that bit's out of sync. But the only way that they could bring that in sync was to actually change that scene and make him put his fingers in his mouth before he said it. You know, and the same goes with the other scene that's noticeably out of sync on 10. Cookie enough. The other scene that's out of sync on 10 is pretty much the part in Bavel where Yuna's marrying Seymour and everyone goes to save her after you've been to the Albed home. You know, you finish the Albed home part, you go to Bavel, you go to rescue Yuna. You know, she's there marrying Seymour, goes to bloody send him, and, you know, everything kicks off. You know, and then they're there holding bloody Tidus and everyone hostage. And she's there telling them, you know, she's there threatening to send Seymour, and she turns around and says to them, "Leave now, please." But if you actually look at the mouth movement on the character of Yuna, she actually turns around and says, "Please leave now." You know, but those are pretty much the only two parts of the game that were noticeably out of sync between the voice acting and the actual motion. But then they turned around and said that they were going to fix the voice sync for the re-release of 10, and all we fucking got, basically, was an early version Japanese anime style, where their mouths are going like this. You know, not even looking like they're saying words, they're just going up, down, up, down, up, down, no movement whatsoever. It's like, oh yeah, that's really fixing the voice sync. It actually looks better on the original. You know, and don't get me started on the graphics. The graphics are absolutely terrible. When I first turned on Final Fantasy X Remake and watched that opening video, the music was out of sync to the original video. It started when the credits were showing, like, who made the game before it went into the scene. But then it's, you know, they started it right at the beginning of the scene, so the music didn't have the same effect that it had on the original release, because it wasn't in sync with what was going on in that scene, and that really upset me. But to top it off, their idea of, you know, upgrading the graphics, their idea of doing that took the emotion out of that scene. You know, because you look in their eyes on the original, and you could see the pain in their eyes. You know, Tidus is there looking at his hometown in ruins. He's been told all this time that Zanarkand's been gone for like 1,000 years, but now he's actually in Zanarkand, in the ruins of Zanarkand, looking at his home in ruins. You know, and he's completely devastated. But to top off being in his ruined hometown, to top all that off, he's also now got the knowledge that the woman he loves is about to bloody die. You know, because we're here, we're in Zanarkand, we're about to get the final Aeon. Yuna then is going to challenge Sin and die. You know, so he's got all that bloody shit going around in his head, and you could see on the original release how much it was driving him up the wall. You could see it in his eyes that he was torn apart by all this all this knowledge that, you know, that has finally bloody, you know, been slapped right in his face because he's there in Zanarkand. It's like, you know, I didn't believe it until now. Now I'm here, you know, I got no choice but to believe it, because there it is. You know? And you can also see in Yuna's eyes in that scene as well. You can also see in Yuna's eyes in that scene that, you know, she's devastated at the fact of, she can see what it's doing to Tidus. Knowing that, you know, she's going to summon the final Aeon, she's going to die fighting Sin. And you can see it in her eyes that she's devastated of what that knowledge is doing to Tidus, and you know, it's all there in that scene. And coupled with the music, that scene was epically emotional. I remember the very first time I played 10 on the PlayStation 2. You know, I bought that game. I bought a PlayStation 2 solely for that game because of how much I love Hironobu. He's an amazing man, he's an amazing storyteller, and coupled with his team and Nobu doing the music, oh my goodness. You know, just epic games. But anyway, you know, that scene when I first played that game, I turned on the game and I was there, it's like, why do they all look so depressed? But by the time I got to that point in the game, I was right there with them, depressed as anything. No, but the remake of 10 is just pretty much, you know, it's just pretty much taken a good portion of the emotion of 10 out of it. You know, and their neon bloody graphics, I mean, the eyes, their bloody eyes, they look like neon lights. They look like something you see in a blooming, what's the word I'm trying to think of? I'm getting ratty, so please excuse me when I start getting emotional and ratty. I tend to not be able to get my words out a bit, so please bear with me. But they do. They look like something that you put on when you're on a dance floor. Bloody neon bloody lights. The only difference is that they're not flashing. You know, it's absolutely terrible. No emotion in their eyes anymore. Because they decided to make them bloody look like they're possessed. You know, it's absolutely terrible. You know, I am 100% devastated at what they've done to 10. They're supposed to be releasing it for the PlayStation 4, but I'm not going to hold my breath that they're going to actually do a good job about it, because from my experience with Square Enix these days, it's clear that all the programmers that had talent in making games went with Hironobu when he left the company. You know, and as for Kingdom Hearts 2, well, oh, don't get me started on that one either. I've come across a couple of bugs in that blooming game that I am, you know, they're so blatant that I'm actually wondering whether they even tested the game before they released it. You know, because I don't know about anyone else, but I've been having problems with the battle system going crazy. I'll be there fighting 1 minute. I mean, happy as Larry, you know, the D-pad is supposed to control the command menu for you to choose your bloody commands and everything. But I'm there, bloody fighting a bloody way. Next minute, I know the command menu's going berserk. I stop being able to attack. I stop being able to attack my bloody enemy, and, you know, the command menu's just going crazy. You know, and I know that there's nothing wrong with my control pad before anyone says anything. I know there's nothing wrong with my control pad because I've used it on other games and it's been fine. Absolutely fine. Nothing, you know, nothing whatsoever. But I have noticed a couple of little things. One of them I can't actually 100% remember at this point in time, but when it comes, when I do my second playthrough of this game on a harder difficulty, I will probably notice it, and then I'll make a video to let you all know what I bloody think. But anyway, you know, one of the other blooming things that is a little bit irritating, not majorly, but it's just, you know, an added extra thing to be disappointed about what they've done to Kingdom Hearts is, you know, the lag on the form change. You know, I don't remember there being that much lag on the blooming when I changed into my form. You know, I did notice now and again a little bit of lag with some of the forms, like Master Form, get a little bit of lag, you know, but not to the degree that I'm getting on the remake. The remake, I am getting an awful lot of lag every single time I change my form, you know, and on the subject of forms, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but, you know, Limit Form is broken. You know, at least on the UK version of the game. I can't comment on the American version because it looks like they've actually done some patches between the release over in America and the release over in the UK. But, you know, Limit Form is broken. You know, I've seen people playing the American version being able to level Limit Form up out of battle, doing their finishing moves out of battle and getting experience for it. You know, on the UK version, that doesn't work. But I've also noticed that I'll be in battle, I'll be using Limit Form finishing moves, which is supposed to give you experience to level up Limit Form, and I'm not actually getting experience for it. I'm there checking my experience level before the battle and after the battle, deliberately trying to level it up, and I noticed a couple of times that I wasn't actually getting experience in for killing enemies with the finisher, which really irritated me, to be honest. It didn't completely piss me off, but when I coupled it with everything else that I'd noticed wrong with the bloody game, you know, it's just an added thing to be annoyed about. You know, and it's beyond a joke. You know, Square Enix these days seems to care more about bloody money than actually putting quality in their games anymore. You know, it seems... You know, it seems to me like, you know, they just don't care. All they want to do is milk these series for all their blooming worth, and they don't really care about giving us good quality games anymore, because all the people that wanted to do that clearly left with Hironobu Sakaguchi when he founded Mistwalker. But anyway, you know, feel free to make up your own minds about it, but I think my days of supporting Square Enix are coming to an end. You know, thank you all for listening.